was a sophomore in high school, and my mom came home one day and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about going to West Point?" I was like, I never really thought about going to West Point, but I had thought about going into the military. I remember always seeing the commercials, be all you can be, when those are the Army commercials, and being really inspired by them. And I always sort of stood up when the national anthem was played, and so the idea had some legs to me, and so I came down here and checked it out. Just spent like half a day with the cadet to get an idea, definitely interested or definitely not, and I walked away from here spellbound by West Point. And went through the whole process, came in to the military, had some other options where to go to college, and 9/11 took place my senior year here, and had I been at Johns Hopkins or at Richmond or Holy Cross, I probably not even sure if I would have finished the year there before enlisting. So it really was it was a good thing that I had come here, and it turned to, and in the end it worked out for the best. And then graduating into the time of war, in 2002, it was just, things got real serious real quick around here. My dad and my mom were both police officers in the Syracuse Police Department. My grandfather had served in World War II, but I was the first one really, no one had served in Korea or Vietnam or any of the conflicts in the 80s. So no, it really was the first one from the family to come into the military. So I graduated in 2002, deployed on St. Patrick's Day in 2004, and I did 12 plus months to Iraq, and then I did Afghanistan twice, 2006, 2007, and 2009. So I spent a total of 28 months in Iraq or Afghanistan. So going to combat zone, I think, affects everyone in their own way, some people significantly. For me, it was, first and foremost, I definitely felt a calling, and it was the place where I was supposed to be. But in terms of changing me, of course, the seeing people your age be killed is pretty traumatic. And being in a unit that was always either fighting or in some pretty intense operations, it really put things into perspective. And so the biggest way it changed me was, especially after my third deployment, is I lived life with a very different sense of urgency. And after my third deployment, I started going to grad school, and that's when I created Team Red, White, and Blue. And but for these past 5 years, I say, going to war and becoming a father, really those two things, and especially the convergence of them, really led me to live a life with just an incredible sense of urgency, to make a difference and to really contribute to the world in the best way possible. I had been out of the Army, if you will. I was still in the Army, but I was at graduate school for about 9 months before we dropped the paperwork to create the organization, and there was just a challenging, it challenged my sense of identity when I went to graduate school and wasn't around like-minded people in the Army for a while. But again, the real big moment was when a soldier that I had served with, a Green Beret, Mark Holbert, almost got killed. He lost both his legs and some of his fingers, and he was in the unit that I had been with just the year before. And when you think about that, and I did a lot, like, he never, for now and for the rest of his life, gets to go back to the way he used to be, and the way his life used to be. And so some people think it's a little obsessive of me or whatever, but this is one of the things that drives me is, I feel a little bit guilty, like even just like in day-to-day life, not working hard to do something to make a big impact, because again, I realize there's a lot, and not just Mark Holbert, there's a lot of men and women who have served the country, but also people who are struggling all around the world and around the country. And so if you've been blessed with the fortune to not have those challenges before you, at least now, the ability to pour your energy and your resources and your time into something like that just feels to me like it's almost like a sense of duty, to do that. So dropped the paperwork actually when my wife was 38 weeks pregnant with Eli. So that was March of 2010. And the organization became official in July of 2010, so a little less than 4 years ago. And again, Mark Holbert's injury was in August of 2010. So the organization was created, it was getting going, and really it was that summer when I realized, wow, this is what I was meant to do, to really pour, my time that I used to spend partying and, watching a lot of TV and doing things like that. I kind of flipped the switch and started spending all of that finite time and resources into helping to create and to lead the organization. As of today, we're about 42,000 members. About a little over a year ago, we were 8,000 members. So the growth is really significant. I think that if you just look at the basic growth trajectory and how we're positively impacting people's lives, I feel we'll be a 1 million member organization, a decade from now. I think that we'll be at that point where we'll be 1 million members, and we will be positively influencing American communities from Washington to Florida to Maine to California and everywhere in between. And I think that we will continue to see an emphasis on physical fitness as being the driver to help keep veterans not just physically active but active in their community as well, meeting new people, and in this world today of connectivity via technology and phones and text messaging and social media, nothing replaces, like right now, sitting down and seeing someone eyeball to eyeball. And so we're leveraging that social media and all that technology to drive real interaction and real relationships. And what that looks like, 5-10 years from now, it's almost hard to imagine, really, because the scale is going to grow, so rapidly. I think that you're going to see, you'll look back in 5 years from now and say, wow, they were pretty small back in 2014, although it feels like we're really big right now. We're getting really big. I think that really we're, very small compared to what we'll be down the road. So most people typically will serve 20 years or more in the military, but for me, I'm pretty sure I'm actually going to transition to the Army Reserves next summer. And so, one of the tough things is that over the past 5 years, I've had good flexibility in my jobs, whether at graduate school or here at West Point. I've had good flexibility to work a lot, on Team Red, White, and Blue. And as you go back out to the operational Army as a major and a lieutenant colonel, I won't have that kind of time. And so I'm going to find a profession that allows me to still put in that time, into Team Red, White, and Blue is sort of my, volunteer 20 or 30 hours of work per week job. When you look at organizations like Special Olympics and Big Brothers and Big Sisters and Habitat for Humanity, and you look at the real big social sector organizations in the country, I think that Team Red, White, and Blue will be in that company a decade down the road. And I think that, frankly, there's no limit to what we can accomplish as an organization. Look, it's not every American is going to join, but there are so many, I believe, who will as they become aware of it and they realize that it's an opportunity for them to be inspired to live a healthier life, to make new friends in their community, and a chance to give back as well as we partner with the Special Olympics and Back on My Feet and some other organizations like that. Going back to Ann Arbor, even speaking about the military part now, very very few of my neighbors knew I was in the military, and I think that same can be said, I think, for many places across the country, that people don't really have that deeper understanding of who their neighbors are like we used to, and that's one of the goals of Team Red, White, and Blue, is to try to facilitate that, and to hear people's stories, over a run, over a workout. And so, I think some people do. Some people know about Team Red, White, and Blue. They certainly see the shirts and they see the stickers and things like that, but I don't think they've got any idea in terms of the extent of the true story. And I think you really only get that when you sit down and you get to know people, get to really know their story and talk to them and ask questions. And, that's increasingly difficult sometimes in today's world, with how busy we are and how much, is going on. I think in terms of my goals for this year, in terms of running, I'd like to run another 50-miler. My family like to make a successful move to Tampa and, be around and travel, with my family throughout the state. But for Team Red, White, and Blue, I think it is to really define our partnerships, with Nike, Johnson & Johnson, and some emerging partnerships that we have, to really make clear definitions about what we're doing, as an organization and how we're going to work together with those companies, because the ability to scale an organization is in many parts driven by corporations that have already scaled to serve millions and hundreds of millions of people. So both psychologically but also practically, really locking down what those partnerships will mean is a huge goal that I've got for this year.